This is Mindustry. I am Laura Fedicus, and I have been working on speedrunning Mindustry Erekir Campaign maps. Today is Crossroads, and this one is interesting because it's the first attack map where Quell is available. And this begs the question of the Mindustry airborne units, which one of them is the best for capturing maps quickly? So I've been working on 3 different runs. There's an Avert, that's this one. There's an Obviate run, and there's a Quell run. And we're gonna see which one of those turns out both economically and combat-wise to be the best at clearing maps quickly. The initial loadout starts you with Carbide. I'm not gonna need that for production or unit inputs, but it does give you a really brain-dead easy way to make a bunch of power by putting in pyrolysis gens. Never worry about it again. The beryllium start on this map is awful. That's because there is nowhere to put in the hydrogen pipes to actually increase the efficiency of it. A real player wouldn't set this up this way. So I actually took out a bunch of these bores and move them so that there is room to put in the hydrogen pipes, and that ends up coming out ahead in the future. Also note, the silicon is missing a cliff crusher. Don't forget to add that. Since I'm going to be focusing on T2 construction, I'm going to need significant hydrogen, tungsten, and silicon, and graphite. So we're going to work on producing a larger amount of all of those. There is room for 4 large bores of tungsten over here, and I'm just going to build 4 large bores and not worry about adding nitrogen. Adding nitrogen would increase the oxide cost of these things, and that would require building an additional oxide factory. And if I don't do that, then I don't need to worry about building more oxide. The graphite setup initially is a bit better. You can pipe in hydrogen much easier without moving anything around. And I'm also preserving the ozone that's being generated. That's going to get used in a defense. So there is a unit factory on this map that is not near an enemy core. So you don't have to take that base, you can just ignore it. But it does generate attacking units, so instead of doing the time to fight that base, I'm just going to put up a little defense, and then I can ignore it. So in this spot, you can see another one of the things that you shouldn't do when building a base is run ducts directly next to each other. If you do that, it makes it a lot harder to add a router and arbitrarily pull off a subline of something if you need it for production. If you make sure to leave a gap in between parallel belts, then you can add a router wherever you want and then bridge out. So this is a side effect of not having duct junctions. But if you plan ahead and make sure that everything has a gap in between, it's really easy to pull stuff out whenever and wherever you want it. The red walls over here make good amounts of sand. So once I do more revealing, I'll be able to put, as many silicon arcs over here as I want. And I am directing the excess of graphite to send this way. That both goes into the Avert factories and it goes into the silicon. The main bus is fun and it feels like playing Factorio, but it actually uses more space and more materials than just unloading things directly into the same thing next to it. So the tungsten's coming over, the graphite's coming over, silicon is sourced. And we're going to pull hydrogen out from here. And then power, and we'll start getting averts. going to keep on building up those factories. Now that we are using tungsten as an input for production, I'm going to finish off the rest of these large bores. And we're going to need to add more hydrogen and make sure that it loops back around and actually gets to the point where hydrogen is being pulled out for the T2s. That point is the most hungry for hydrogen amongst all the stuff we're going to build. And then it gets trivial to just copy paste these Avert factories, including the power and the hydrogen supply, and stretch them downward as many as I want. I'm going to end up with 6 of them by the time we actually start combat, which is 3.5 minutes away. Those pyrolysis gens, I've built them wrong and dumbly because they generate water. If you do something while constructing it, water might backflow into the inputs and jam things up. So you want to have one thing of pipes there to do a one-way valve thing to keep the water from getting in there. Or you can get lucky, which is what happens this game. But it can be a problem, and you see it also when doing a main bus where intermediate construction conditions cause the wrong materials to sneak into a pipe, and then that'll lead to a jam somewhere further down. We've revealed some space, add a second silicon, and that'll allow expanding the Avert factory further. Remember to actually put power lines when you build more power plant. And then we need to get sight on the spot where the defense goes. Everything that attacks you is going to come into this point. So I just put up a couple sublimates and give them ozone, and that'll take care of it. This will stop Claroy, and it will stop Anthicus in the numbers that are actually going to approach. And we're also going to set up a hospital that's going to pull from the same ozone source. There is an enemy Obviate factory. That is the first thing you destroy. It will never get anywhere near actually producing. And there is a Vanquish factory, which is the last base you take, but we're going to be like 15 minutes away from it starting production. They're going to never even be close to seeing the light of day. Resource income is good and stable. There's enough oxide banked up for a few more Avert factories, and we can start to get scouting taken care of. So that base down there is the first target. It's got thorium. There's also a thorium pocket to the north that starts out revealed. I don't need any thorium at all. I can just ignore it. The other unit build will want that thorium, but not here, not yet. And with the proximity of wet green and ozone here, it is easy to add any combustion chambers that might be useful to make up for any lacking power. Now the Averts are short range, so we're going to have to actually approach any defenses we need to take out. The standard practice is going to be to hit the ammo duct and then run it out. You can also use player ship carrying a block to waste ammo on things. Most of these are going to be in range of a core, so you won't be able to just drop walls to drain ammo. And we're going to start the attack. First approach is from the left. There's just that single breach. Go straight for the ammo duct. There's another breach. Hit its ammo source or not. Third breach, hit its duct, and then work on the core. So the Averts are deceptively powerful because of their density. They're small units and it's easy to clump them very close together. So in a given amount of area, you can cram a lot of hit points and a lot of units firing. In contrast with the Obviate, which, although each Obviate has, twice as many hit points and much more damage, they're much larger units. They push each other farther out, and it's harder to actually concentrate that fire. So one of the outcomes that you'll see using Obviates instead of Averts is they're a lot harder to use against disperses, because the arc of a disperse will hit an entire Obviate and focus it down very quickly. But if a disperse is fighting Averts, the different bullets will hit different Averts, and they'll actually be much more survivable. Okay, the core down there is done for. And I am going to want to go down and build on that core, both to prevent anything from coming along and rebuilding it, and to raise the unit cap. The Avert run here is the most important one for being concerned about the unit cap. There is the potential for like a stray Avert to be down there and maybe interrupt the construction. You want to make sure that's cleared out before you start building. Now, next target is the base to the right. It has 3 afflicts on the south side, and then it's got 2 disperses around its core, which is to the north. So the obvious thing to do is to take flying units and wrap around to the north. Now that's not as obvious as in other locations because there is a shield in the way. That's the gimmick of this map is there are shields on some of the enemy bases, so you have to sort of take them in a particular order. There was a shield over the rightmost base, but taking out the base that I just did to the south removes the power from the shield. And then once I destroy that base, it's going to remove a shield that's covering the base all the way to the left. Like those beam links that are crossing over are actually carrying shield power. So we've got 15 of these stored up. Now we're going to send them around to the north. There is a shield here covering some irrelevant defenses. There's no core in there. There's no unit production in there. It's just a thing. I guess it might stop ground units from getting over here, whatever. There's the disperse. Take out the duct. Move to the second one. Hit its duct. Now that was not a great attack. With everyone dead, there's the possibility of things getting rebuilt. So I'm losing some time at this point. One of the things that you might choose to do is the sitting an Avert at the maximum range from the disperse and drawing out all its ammo. This one's already empty. It hasn't been rebuilt. That's good news. That one, I think we are going to try and drain it out. And it's empty, so we're going to take out this core. So with that base effectively done, not like any of the units it produces are going to head out and do some defense. That hiccup there was that core being destroyed. So 1 core left. And now we're going to head to the backside of the base on the left, It has a disperse right on the part I want to attack, another disperse further in, and there's an afflict to the south. So if I head too far to the right from this position, then I have to worry about that. We're gonna store up some more units, and then we're gonna go in and we're gonna surgically remove the ducts and then take out the core that's here. Yeah, there's that afflict. So that really narrows the places that you can reasonably approach with averts. And the heat input on that afflict is not particularly vulnerable either. Leave one of these behind to prevent rebuilding. That's got no more power, so it just empties out its batteries and then we're fine. Fly them by the hospital and then head towards the final attack. There's another unpowered shield block and intermediate defense that I just ignore. It's got disperses and breaches in it. Oh, maybe not. Anyway, took out its belt, and then the other one is in a fight a single disperse, and then you get rid of the core. And that's the end for here, just waiting for this to burn down. Final time 1837, with probably a minute or so of improvement if I were doing better piloting. So this second run is using Obviates as the primary ship unit. See how that goes. Set up the pyrolysis generator. Once again, we won't need any carbide for anything else. A difference in this build, we're going to need more oxide than we did for Averts. And we're going to want to use the heat from them to make nitrogen for the prime fabricators. So we're going to fix the default oxide that you come with. Direct the heat to the same place. There's already enough ozone to run 2 of these coming in. Next is the tungsten. We're going to need a lot less tungsten for this run, so we're only going to put in 2 of these drills for now. Start stockpiling nitrogen. And thorium. So this is a big divergence from the Avert run. We're going to need a constant supply of thorium as it's an input to the fabricators. And there's a large wall in the way, so we're going to have to do the Rube Goldberg machine to yeet boxes back and forth to actually get the thorium to the fabricators. Could have done this when I was here the first time, and things would subsequently be a bit faster. There's room for improvement. Next, we're going to hydrogen some of the graphite. repair the belts to redirect graphite and tungsten over here. Next, pyrolysis generator. And starting work on the first Obviate factory. And the last thing we need to do is pipe in the gases, and then this will be ready to go. Could have had more thorium by now, but since that thing wasn't actually ready to start producing, it probably doesn't make much difference. And with no units ready to scout yet and the attack timer ticking down, we're going to use radars to reveal the spot where the defensive sublimates go. We're going to get some extra slag for the purpose of running slag heaters to get more nitrogen to run more prime fabricators. And the reason to go for those versus electric heaters is to conserve oxide usage, which we're skirting pretty thin. Take the first Obviate and go do some scouting. And set up an additional silicon arc to run the second Obviate factory. Slag heaters for more nitrogen, finish that up. We are out of oxide. That was some lost production there, taking too long to find that. So we just have breaches to worry about at this first base, and with the good alpha strike of the Obviates, the ducts will be easy to take out. There's one of those attacks incoming that I don't have to worry about. Ugh, rebuilt. Time wasted on bad combat. The Obviates have very good alpha strike, but not so great durability. So trying to use them before you have a significant number often goes pretty poorly. You know, at the limit of the minimum number of these things necessary to still make forward progress and not incur losses. Plenty of spare resources and nothing else to build. So sure, we'll put the core down. We don't actually need the unit cap increase for these guys. Now we'll loop around the north shield and start trying to fight the two disperses that are guarding the second base. All right. Run that out of ammo. There's a second one in this direction. Get it distracted. Oop. Yeah, target the ozone tank. That'll slow down the ammo replenishment on these things. Now there's one drill left, providing we'll hit that. They should all run out. And they're out. Focus down the core. Pop. Head for the hospital. And I should be making sure that nothing rebuilds in that space. Drain ammo position. Good. There's an Avert to the right here that I need to worry about. I want to focus down all these large bores, but I shouldn't just brute force it because I lose all my obviates. And there's still one bore left, so that's a pretty significant setback there. Without that mistake, it probably cost me a minute or two. That's the last bore. Disperse should be run out of ammo. And it is, and now we can position things to shoot the core. Bring over any reinforcements. Always making sure to go around the south. You don't want to cross the main defense at that base or the tiny irrelevant base that's right there. And there's the capture at 1944. Probably with a good 2 or 3 minutes of combat mistakes that could be improved on. This is the third run of Crossroads. This time we're going straight for Quell, and then we're going to use those to finish the map, and we'll see how long that takes. First stop, add the cliff crusher that's missing. This does end up being the fastest run, so I'm going to leave it unedited for reference purposes. Second stop is the pyrolysis generator. So the carbide is potentially useful for, you're going to need cyanogen synthesizer, and you're going to need the ship T4 factory. So any carbide I choose to use before that is going to mean I'm going to have to operate carbide factories longer. But gaining the power with so little oxide still ends up being worth it by a bunch. So I am going to make up for it by building the carbide factory earlier. There's going to be less total construction going on, so the beryllium replacement can wait. Instead, we're going for the carbide as the main second stop. And so that's going to involve fixing the tungsten and graphite and bringing those up early. And I'm going to want to make sure that I go down and beef up the tungsten production before I run out of construction materials. All right, carbide coming in. Now, beryllium fix. Get rid of all that. Put down real hydrogenable drills. Pull in the hydrogen. It is pretty nice having a hydrogen pipe intentionally crossing the entire base that you can just pull from whenever you're doing something that needs hydrogen. Get on these drills. Trial and error suggested that 3 large bores is the number to put in here to prevent running out later. What next? All right, thorium setup. So in this build, we don't need any thorium for inputs. We just need it for construction. So we can make a tiny base, not bother with the Rube Goldberg yeet boxes, and just player unit carry enough thorium to build what we need to build. So we'll leave that behind in mining and go on to other things, and then periodically go back and grab a chunk of thorium and shuttle it to the core. We are still stockpiling ozone for planned future defense, or if we want to put up a combustion generator. Varying thorium. And then we'll get started on the ship factory. This is a PvP schematic for Quells that I took from someone. Whoever it is, it's in the... There's a message block in there. I'm sure the name is in there. It's somebody I know. It is extremely easy to acquire the inputs to build Quells. There are 4 inputs on the schematic, and none of the stuff that it takes in is like even medium tier tech. You don't even put tungsten into it. It's just beryllium, graphite, sand, and wet green. Now we have run ourselves out of tungsten, so moving on to building some of the other things while that replenishes. Divert over some graphite. The bridges will build properly since the sand duct is already done. And pulling up the wet green to go into the embedded cyanogen synthesizer. Finish that up, it'll start making blocks. And then we're tungsten waiting. The power is going orange. We're depleting the batteries. So it's prudent to make sure that we get at least another little bit of power plant. And preparing to make the second pyrolysis, which now we're at, more than 50 carbide. So putting up the radar to reveal down to where the defensive position goes and start putting up the Avert factory. So Quells have a very short visibility radius, much shorter than their missile range. So you want to have some Averts around to scout out fog of war, to reveal the targets before you're shooting at them. They are also useful for distracting turrets and draining ammo, which you can also do with a player ship carrying a block. All the stuff that I need to actually start building Averts is available to pull from nearby lines, though I've run low on graphite. So just steer in a little hydrogen, that'll fix that. And it takes 2 radars to get down to the choke point. Probably should have gone back to finish this sooner. And just a little bit more thorium. So there's just been one arc running for building materials the whole time, and that's about to also be diverted towards the Averts. So we are stretching silicon thin for building, and I'm going to need a lot of that to put down the 2 sublimits, which we're going to span that gap, not by putting it in more silicon factories, but by pulling excess silicon out of unit factories. I just need to get another 400 to build these things, and once they're down, then it can all replenish. And there's also going to need to be some silicon pulled out for building the hospital. Although with the way that the Quells can shoot from so far out of range, the hospital is actually less necessary than the other 2 runs. And with how powerful they are individually, we're going to be able to do things like send 2 in one direction and 2 in a different direction, and work on the different 3 target bases simultaneously. All right, pull out more silicon. Yeah, the enemies approaching is sort of a early warning, because that's just turning on the enemy unit factories, which it takes a while for them, once they manufacture, to walk to the choke point and start affecting you. These walls are for player carrying. All right, power plant finished. We'll get close on the sublimit. We've got our first scouting Avert, so that is revealing the ammo source and the turrets that I need to take out. On this one, I'm probably just going to go straight to the left and ignore the ammo and go for ducts. Player unit, we're going to sit around and wait for the trickle of silicon to work on the hospital. When that Avert heals up, I'm going to want to use it to distract the turret, so that player unit, distracting turrets, which makes it easier for the Quell bombs to actually hit their target. I do die, but, pick up another block and head doing the same thing. It interrupted my plans for building the hospital. All right, first breach that needs to go taken out. There's like 2 more in there that will be able to hit the missiles on their way to the core. So it speeds things up to take those out. Use the Averts as a distraction, or oh yeah, no, just target the router. Supplement successfully defend on attack. Third Quell coming up soonish. Core going down. Shouldn't have wasted those Averts. They could be scouting. That Quell is headed around the shield towards the north section of the second base. And I'm going to build a couple walls to prevent NPC rebuilding. All right, so we're sending these 3 to the east base. And I've got at least 1 Avert to scout. There is the convenient ozone container by the power in there that makes a really inviting first target. And we will be able to get bombs in there past the disperse fire. This thing will be able to sit ranged out if it lived, but it didn't. Whoops. But it did reveal the ozone. The 3 of those is enough firepower to take that base, so all future Quells are going to head directly to the west for the 3rd and final attack. Yeah, just that one guy successfully hit the ozone container. I may have to use one of these to scout. It will survive well enough in the disperse. Yeah, we'll just fly in there and do it. No more ammo replenishing, so all right. So that base is done for. I don't need to pay any more attention to it. Now we start heading over to the left. We've got our Avert Scout, and we've got the Quells. There is the hiccup for destroying the base. It's taken care of. Now I want to go over and drop the core wall to prevent rebuilding. We'll pass by the hospital and then head to the west. And there is the southern flank of the west base. Everyone's... I'm not sure why that powered off. Maybe it was never powered and I just didn't notice. So I want the disperse revealed, if I can, and maybe the ammo bores. No, that's an ammo waste position. This is sufficient firepower to pretty quickly take down the core in there once we break the disperse. And we're gonna set up an incoming arc to reduce the effectiveness as the disperse, as it'll have to do a lot more turret rotating. reveal. There it is. And take that duct out. The duct is dead, and then we can just, fly in and sit next to it and finish it off. So yeah, I did a whole lot less construction than the other two, and I ended up with cheaper, more powerful units that were more useful in breaking through defenses, however badly designed. So 1704, faster than the others. Yeah, so there's your answer. Quell is the air unit to use for destroying things quickly.